Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'm Big Fella.
And I'm Credo.
And welcome to Pop Talks, where we take a slice out of the pop culture pie. Today, we are focusing on a very popular slasher franchise that has made itself an icon among slasher fans around the country. I am, of course, talking about Terrifier 3, written and directed by Damien Leone and starring... I don't remember the actor who plays Art the Clown, but whoever his name is, he plays Art the Clown, who has become a icon of slasher fans because of how brutal and sadistic he is. Like, I kid you not. Like, this guy puts people makes Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, and even Freddy Krueger, he makes them look like saints in comparison.
Yeah, the unbridled gore in this film is just, next level, because... when I saw the first film, it was like, okay, I was expecting it not to be as, hardcore as I imagined. I thought it would be a little more on the soft side, but, because I was like, oh, it's a clown, it's probably just another It knockoff. But then when I actually saw the film, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, why is everything so realistic? And I just came to the conclusion that, yeah, this film is probably topping a lot of slasher films. This doesn't get as much marketing in terms of how much of an icon it is, but I believe it deserves to be recognized at least as a top tier slasher film, at the very least.
Yes, and I will say this, for people that are fans of slashers, if you like seeing people get killed with all variety of instruments, whether it be knives, hammers, scalpels, saws, chainsaws, anything you can imagine, this franchise is for you. But there's actually a little bit of history behind the character. As it turns out, the Terrifier movies are not the first appearance of Art the Clown. The very first appearance of Art the Clown was actually in a short film in 2009 directed by Damien Leone. If I remember correctly, that short film was also called Terrifier. I do not know for sure. It's been a while since I read it, but... yes, that short film was the very first appearance of Art the Clown, although at that time, Art was played by a completely different guy who has since retired from acting. But the new guy, and again, I apologize, I don't know his name, but he has played Art the Clown in another movie that was directed by Damien Leone, All Hallows Eve, an anthology series which follows a bunch of different stories, but they're all covered under the same frame story, similarly to the VHS films like Credo and I talked about last week. But Terrifier is Art the Clown in all his blood-drenched and gore self. He's basically a walking force of violence. I almost said force of nature, but that's being a little too overbearing, because this guy, he is very dangerous, because in the movies he is easily killed, I would say, possibly over 20 people, possibly more. And like Credo said, these movies, and I can attest to it because I've seen all of them, these movies are gory. If you have a weak stomach, if you do not like the sight of gore, do not see these movies, because... there were literally reports of, even in the second film, people walked out of the theaters or were literally puking. When I saw the third film yesterday with a buddy of mine, and there were people, there were theaters that actually gave out barf bags to people. We were not offered that, and we actually didn't puke our guts out, because from personal experience, and I'm not going to spoil the movie because it's currently airing in theaters, it is still gory. It has a lot of gory death, but not nearly as bad as the scene in the bedroom from the second movie.
Yo, actually, speaking of bedrooms, the one scene that I found to be really, really, really messed up was that part where he slices off that dude's phallus, and I was like, oh, no, you didn't have to go there, because for me, I'd be like, okay, my limits are eyes and phalluses, because when I see action scenes where people get shot in the eye, or it's it gets pulled out, even in a Kill Bill reference. I remember seeing that movie as a kid. I know I'm going a little off topic, but I'm just saying, when I saw it, I was like, damn, I just don't want. I think I'm afraid of women right now. But yeah, but anyway, it's for me. For what does it for me though is the creativity of the kills. That's the thing. He just uses everything. It's not just knives and bats and swords, machetes. It's all types of things. He I think in the third movie he uses liquid nitrogen to kill somebody, I'm like, damn, can you imagine just like having your arm all frozen and then it just gets sawed off like a piece of meat? That's just not settling.
Yeah, like we've seen in movies like the Halloween franchise, Friday the 13th, Jason and Michael use all sorts of weapons. Like Jason Voorhees, we know he uses his machete, but he's used all sorts of weapons too. Like literally anything that these guys in slasher movies get their hands on can become a deadly weapon. I mean, even look at Child's Play. Chucky literally beat a teacher to death with a long ass ruler. So I guess if you are demented enough and crazy enough, anything you hold can become a deadly weapon. And like Credo said, the one thing I do like about these movies is that the kills are very creative. And the fact that literally almost every single thing that Art has touched has been a weapon except for his horn. I think that's the only item that I've ever seen that man hold that he didn't kill somebody with. Although, if I'm being completely honest, how the hell are you going to beat someone to death with a horn? I mean, the thing looks like it's plastic and it's just connected to a bubble that goes, or I don't mean to do the Pac-Man noise, but I can't really do it. Yeah, like that. You can't beat someone to death with a little plastic toy horn.
Yo, I mean, well, you can get a little creative with it. I mean, I wouldn't go beyond the fact of saying that he would probably go to a rhino, slice off its horn, and then probably kill someone with it while having the rhino trample over the guy. Yeah, because when it comes to killing, there's just so many ways to do it. It's not only about creativity, it's about just going inside the most fucked up part of your head and just embracing it. Like at any moment right now, because I remember in the third film they were doing a podcast, and hey, we're looking at each other right now like, wait a minute, one in how many people are killers? So there's your answer.
Yeah, that is fair. And like I said, I'm not going to completely spoil the whole movie, but like Rio said, there's a side character that has a podcast that talks about serial killers, and she wants Sienna, who has become the recognized final girl of the franchise so far. She wants her to be on the show. Now, I understand, like, for us as podcasters, if we were big enough, we'd probably want the same thing, like a famous person on our show, but for someone that, like, literally in the second film, Sienna and her brother literally go through hell. Like, Art the Clown brutally kills most of her friends. I mean, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen the movie, but I remember the gist of it. I believe that Art also killed her father, and he almost killed her brother, too. And that, like, a lot of people, like, see in movies, like, these final girl characters, they, like, come out triumphant. But realistically, if someone goes through that, that's going to leave some serious mental scars. And if I had met someone, say if I met someone who was a survivor of a serial killer, I'm not going to ask them to join my podcast and talk about the experience. That's a effed up thing to do. I would just say, look, I hear your story. I really admire your courage, and I'm glad that you're still here with us. I'd leave it at that, and I'd probably like to talk about something else, like, hey, what's your favorite thing about pop culture? Because that's what our podcast is about. We don't talk about serial killers, although we will talk about fictional ones, because that's fair game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because in the genre of horror, there's just so much to explore, and we're still at like the tip of the iceberg here. It goes way down, and I'm like, when you imagine a lot of like different horror movies, I'm talking very classic ones, even like as Big Fella said, like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Child's Play. Now, there's a commonality between two films, which is the supernatural that I see, and the fact that you really can't deal with a supernatural being simply by just, I'm just gonna grab a sword or a gun or whatever and just get rid of them. No, even then, like, it requires some sort of like demonic energy or like a crystal or some sort of like aura to get rid of the monster. But here's the difference though. Some of these guys are immortal, and you really can't do anything about that.
Exactly. Like, case in point, for Art the Clown, we know little to nothing about this guy. All we know is that he shows up in this town and he starts killing people. The last victim of the first movie, Vicky, I think, I could be wrong, like I said. I just saw the film, but to tell you the truth, a lot of the fucked up shit I tried to like push out of my head because I was gonna eat something right after. And a big disclaimer for anybody who gets into this franchise, if you haven't already, My personal advice is do not eat anything before or after, because I guarantee you, if you have a weak stomach or like if you've eaten a lot and if you see some of the stuff that I saw in these movies, you will probably lose your lunch. And I didn't. I made sure to, because when it comes to like super brutal movies, I mean, movies like the John Wick series or the Expendables, where you do see guys get stabbed, knives thrown in their heads, that's not bad. But compared to a movie where you see like where you literally saw a girl get tortured by like manicure scissors slicing one side of her face open and proceeding to get brutally tortured by Art the Clown, I can't eat at that. Like that's just disgusting.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine watching this movie high, because sometimes, for some people, you get some crazy anxiety when you're stoned, or even while you're drunk, when you're like just really inhibited, and you watch this movie. I'm sure, like, no matter what drug you're under the influence of, you will not you will not fathom like the pure gore that this movie has. Because, I mean, I've tried to watch horror movies while drunk, not really drunk, but tipsy. And I notice sometimes that I just get easily startled. I mean, I have the remote in my hand. God knows if I throw it at the TV, you know. So, and even like experiences while high too. I mean, look, it's legal in Michigan. I don't care what people say, and I'm not going to get into that either. But at the same time, watching Terrifier while high, you start to feel things like actually happen to you. Like when you see someone like get stabbed straight to the eye and their skull's ripped open and all that. It kind of like translates to you, and you're like imagining how it happens to you, because some people get really fucking creative when they get high. So, point is, don't be under the influence while you watch it.
Exactly, and there was literally a story, a news article that I read about a pop culture newsletter. They even said, "Do not take edibles and watch Terrifier 3," because I've never taken them as of now, but I could imagine the experience. I've met people who have done such things, and that's okay. It's a free country. People do what they want, but the imagining seeing this movie while under the influence of a drug would probably be very horrifying. And now I wanted to mention how we've been talking about characters like Jason, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Chucky. All those guys, like, I mean, for Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, Jason became who he was through sheer tragedy. He died while he was supposed to be watched by the camp counselors. Michael Myers was just born evil. Literally, he never showed emotion. He killed his sister when he was a little kid. He was locked up in an insane asylum for almost most of his life. He grows up and goes back to Haddonfield, his hometown, to kill his remaining sister. And Chucky was already a serial killer. But the thing is, some of these guys, like, I have noticed, I mean, except for Chucky for the most part, literally all three of these characters, excluding Freddy Krueger, I keep forgetting, Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, they've never like harmed children. I remember there was one specific scene from one of the remakes of Halloween, or it was a different one. Michael Myers saw a little kid, and the little kid talked to him for a minute. He did not attack him. Like, he just like stood and looked at him. Like, and Jason Voorhees, there was even an episode in one parts of one of the movies where a little girl was like in her bed and Jason was in her house and he was walking right up to her and she was praying. He didn't hurt her. And that's the thing. These guys, some of these horror movie villains, even though technically some of them are actual monsters or like serial killers, a lot of them, most of them that we've seen, or that I've seen personally, have never harmed children. That's what makes Art the Clown so different from them. Because literally in these movies, and I'm not just being specific, like even in the third one, a little bit of a spoiler alert, Art does kill children in the third movie. Like, this guy, I don't know what the hell he is, but judging from the fact that in the first movie he literally shot himself to avoid being captured by the cops, and that he came back to life in the morgue, shows to me that he's definitely not human. Like, he's got to be like some sort of demonic entity or like a spirit for the undead. My point is, the sheer sadistic nature of this character and the sheer brutality of his kills, like we've been saying, very creative, very brutal, and like he relishes the suffering he causes. And Damien Leone, the director and creator, even stated that if Art has a knife he's not simply going to stab you. He is going to put you through as much pain as he can before you die.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Art the Clown is just basically rated E for everybody at this point because he just does not discriminate. He doesn't care man, woman, child, dog. No, this is not JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But, but anyway, like, the fact that the director, Damien Leone, was willing to explore, like, infanticide and whatever they call killing kids or whatever. I mean, nobody else looks at that kind of stuff and is like, oh no, this guy's like out of his mind or whatever. Dude, it's a movie. I want people to understand that fact that it's just a movie. Yeah, okay, a kid died. So what? You know, millions of kids die every day. Okay, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm just saying, in a movie, all right, killing kids should not be off the table because if you want to really shock your viewers and just give them that pure, unfiltered rage carnage, I think you just have to cross a few lines, you know what I'm saying? By the way, I take back what I said about kids dying millions, okay?
Yeah, I understand where Credo's coming from, and I'm sure a lot of people can. A lot of people, like, when there have been cases, the death of a child, particularly in media, it's like, it either comes off as a shock or, like, show you that, like, even kids aren't spared. I mean, look at a lot of anime that came out before the 2000s. There were a lot of shows that I saw, like, that Credo and I have watched together that we've heard about, where anime where kids are not spared from the carnage. And, I mean, it is sad. Because for me personally, I have kids in my family. I mean, I'm not a dad yet. I'm only 23, but I want to be a dad someday. But I have cousins, like the youngest cousin I have is only a year old right now, and the thought of any of my little cousins getting hurt absolutely pains my heart. And I do not like to see kids get killed in movies at all. But I understand that's the director's choice. They try to highlight that, like, when they do realistically. Like, one of the key examples of a child's death that really stuck with me was Pan's Labyrinth. At the very end, where the main character, I don't remember her name at the time, is shot by her stepfather. And I mean, this was back during World War II. And unfortunately, if you were in Europe, if you lived in Germany, Italy, or anywhere else in Europe, your chances of making it to adulthood were pretty much not guaranteed because the Nazis were everywhere. But, not to get off topic, but I guess my sense of empathy runs so deep that even seeing, like, fictional children get hurt, like, really hits me right in the feels. But that makes the comeuppance of the villain that much more satisfying. Especially when Art the Clown got the shit kicked out of him by Sienna at the end of Terrifier 2.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, when I look at different media and you got stuff like kids dying, dogs dying, and just everybody pretty much dying, you don't really seem to care much. But now what I'm trying to get at here is that when it comes to horror though, nothing is off limits. All right, nothing. And if you just don't like the movie, then just don't watch it. You know, as simple as that. And if I watched the movie, for example, and I saw like three kids lined up, and one dude is holding a musket and shoots them, I'm gonna be like, okay, that's pretty messed up. But hey, it still made me feel bad about that. And I'm like, wow, you did a great job as a director. I'm glad you did that. Well, I'm not glad what happened, but I'm glad you did that just to create that effect because then again, we all know that movies, video games, anime, they're all art. That's the thing. It's all part of personal expression, you know? And maybe if you think that kids dying in a movie just makes the director a deranged lunatic, that's really not the case. It's just him exploring a part of his mind where it's like, okay, what would happen if this happened? So, nothing's off the table.
Exactly. And like Credo said, this is the director's creative expression. Just because they have like instances of people getting murdered in their movies or their TV shows, it doesn't explicitly mean that the director likes this. It's part of human nature, but I don't know what the hell like Damien Leone's nature is because this guy has single-handedly made a slasher franchise so recognizable with just 3 entries, and I don't know if it's because Art the Clown is a favorite slasher character. I don't know if they like the creative nature of his kills or the brutal like gore-fest nature. Because if you like told me like if you first showed me this movie and like I saw it, I would have assumed, because by the grainy nature of it, that it looked like it could have been filmed in the 1990s. Like, you ever see those memes or those things where, what if this movie was filmed in the 1990s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that's how I feel with Terrifier, because the texture of the filming method, it looks like it could have been filmed like with an older camera. Like, it's a little grainy. It's not like crystal clear like a lot of modern movies, but that's okay. Like, it's still enjoyable. Like, another movie I saw that followed that same method was The Holdovers, starring Paul Giamatti, and like even the audio sounded like it was old school. And that, I really enjoyed that. I like that. I like it when directors take a different approach to like detailing the time period of the movie. I mean, as far as I know, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Terrifier 3, like the entire Terrifier franchise, takes place in the early 2000s, because at this point, like, people have smartphones, they had video games, they had all this cool stuff, they have all modern stuff in there, so I certainly think that it takes place in the early 2000s. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. Although, okay, case in point, it should take place in the 2000s or the 2020s, because as we said earlier, in the third movie, a side character has a podcast, and they're watching it on a phone. Like, some of the characters see it on the phone. So anyway, I'm gonna shut up about that now. I'm
No,
going
you're
on.
good, bro. Okay, but here's like, I'm glad you mentioned like the old filming methods, because those are part of like what I call the three A's. I don't know if I coined it, but I think about it sometimes: aesthetics, atmosphere, and ambiance. And here's the funny part, because atmosphere and ambiance mean the same thing in different languages, but they have different effects. Like, they have different meanings. You know. So if we look at the aesthetics, let's say you film with an old camera, you put like old devices, old technology in the movie, and you just add that grid of audio, and even like some of the like more cheaply made stuff, like, even if you remember like those Godzilla movies, sometimes you could see like the freaking strings on top of the winged beast and all that. And it's not part. I mean, yeah, I guess that is cheap, but at the same time, if it helps the movie flesh out, I'd say it's pretty important. Now, for atmosphere and ambiance, which I'm just going to overlap together, it's the most important thing when it comes to that would be the fact that when you create a scene, you have to find a way to fill it. And if the director sees a way to fill it in terms of just filming with an old camera, or putting in plot points that are, overused or have been used in the past, even past slasher films, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if it comes out and it's not just a basic carbon copy, I'd say it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, like, how we're talking about the grainy nature, looking like it was filmed in a different time period. This film, like Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3, they looked like they could have fit like in the late 1980s or the 1990s. But given how films have like grown over time, so has like the opportunity for more graphic, violent content to be inside it. Because, like, I also talked about 1990s, 1980s anime. A lot of this stuff has things in there that you do not see that much anymore. And even if like, say, a really messed up manga gets adapted into an anime adaptation, there's a big chance that all the violence, like whether it be like on innocent civilians, women or children, it's toned down significantly. But Terrifier, like, it goes all in, because, as we've said, art does not discriminate. And the one thing that I have noticed is that he is particularly violent with women. Now, I mean, he's killed everybody pretty much brutally. I mean, even the final girl of the first movie, Victoria. I'm gonna keep calling her that because that's just the name I can think of at the time. So do not hate me. But she like survived, but he basically like attacked her so severely. I won't go into the specifics because I don't want to gross anybody out. Her face was hideously deformed, and yeah, she's basically left permanently scarred as a result. And even there's another scene in the first movie which was probably the most graphic one, where he literally cuts someone in half. That's all I will say about it. But for me personally, that was the most messed up part of the first movie.
Yeah, no, for sure, dude. And actually, I've been thinking, you missed one more icon of the classic slasher films, Leatherface.
Yes, like even my friend and I that I saw the movie with yesterday, he said for the time, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not as brutal as like some of the more modern adaptations, like the 2022 Leatherface movie, which is not good, by the way. I mean, the kills are pretty brutal, but that's about all it has going for it. It's not a good movie. That one was packed to the brim with a lot of bloody violence. But the first one, the very first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that was more psychological. And that's a lot of horror that I like. Like, I do like it when it's not just all, like, brutally being killed with, like, weapons or such. It's that the fact that, like, the main characters know that there's something bad out there and they don't know where it is. That is the most, like, the greatest part, I should say, about horror. Like, not knowing what the hell is out there, and if you go out there, there is a 90 to 95% chance that you're going to die. And the other 5% is you might live. But like I said, 90, 95 is bigger than 5%.
Yeah, definitely, bro. And one thing I want to touch on actually is like part of my final part would be how the plot is structured. All right, so in a lot of like different horror films, the good part about it is that the plot isn't very linear. So it just doesn't go like, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, thus this happens. Everybody lives happily ever after. You know, I'm glad that they diverged the plot into stuff where it's like, okay, this stuff's not explained. Let's make a prequel for it and then explain it there. But then actually in the prequel, it's missing some things. So let's explain it in the next sequel. So that's what I like jumping through the movies, because that increases the exploration that I like, or like the trivia / lore. You know, if you really want to like enjoy like films, movies, any type of media, like the very basic thing that I say is that as long as it's got a lot of like backstory, it's got lore, it's got trivia, as I said, as long as it's got all three of those, then it's already complete.
Yes, and like what Creo was saying, not a lot of what happens in Terrifier is properly explained. Like the second movie just follows Art literally terrorizing this town. Like people survive. Some people survive, albeit very scarred. He kills himself, and we think, oh, that's it. But then his body gets taken away. Boom, he's still alive. So it definitely makes you think that this guy ain't human. The second movie follows a new cast of characters who are a bit more likable than the first one, and we get a little bit more lore behind the characters. And apparently by the fact that for some weird reason, or maybe it'll be explained in the next movie, Art is apparently weakened by holy weapons, which was a replica sword, which honestly looks pretty badass. Like at first glance, like it looks kind of stupid. Like it looks like a very cheesy, like 80s type flick where like a chick gets like this suit of armor and everything. But after you watch the movie, it's actually really badass. Like, and the fact that Art the Clown got his ass kicked by a woman makes his death all the more cathartic, because as I said, he is very, like, even judging by his behavior of how he's, like, attacked certain victims in the movies, he is misogynistic. So seeing him get killed by a woman in the second movie was very satisfying to see.
Yo, you know what that reminds me of with killing Art with holy weapons? That reminds me of the Ghost Rider, because Ghost Rider actually can't really be harmed by anything unless with weapons from, I think, heaven or hell.
Yes.
As I recall. So basically when you put Ghost Rider against anybody, you really can't do anything against them. So same case for Art the Clown.
Yeah, and like we've said, this dude, like he survived shooting himself in the head. And obviously you know that he survives because the next movie just came out. He survived getting his head chopped off. But I will just tell you, you have to see the new one for yourself to determine how the hell is this guy still alive? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But overall, what I will say is, it's a good series. It's a good slasher series. Obviously, this isn't a movie that you want to see with your kids because you don't want to scar your kid for life. But if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend that likes slasher movies that's like bloody violence, this is definitely for you. But like I said, if you're squeamish, don't see it. I used to be a squeamish little baby when I was a kid, but as I've gotten older, I've grown desensitized to seeing violence of all sorts in movies and TV shows. So I've been able to see it. I mean, I still freak out at some of it because some of the deaths in these movies really take you by surprise. But like I'm rambling. But overall, it is a good addition to the horror elements of Hollywood. And literally, like there's even an arcade game coming out, literally called the Artcade game, where you play as Arthur Clown and you kill people. And it doesn't look too bad. It's just like a side scroller beat 'em up type of game, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games of the 1980s. So this franchise is still going, and the fact that Damien Leone said that there's a fourth movie coming out, I wonder if that's gonna wrap things up or if there's gonna be potential for more, because the potential for like more stuff in this world is pretty big. Although so far Art the Clown is the only evil character, but it'd be interesting to see what happens next.
Yo, actually, what I want Damien Leone to explore, not only just Art's backstory, like fleshing it out a bit more, but also maybe introducing Art's wife if he has one.
If he did, I mean, who knows? Who knows if anybody could tie that guy down?
But then you sort of like explain, like, wait, this guy doesn't have emotions. How is he capable of like romantically loving somebody else? But maybe if they just share the same passion for just killing, I feel like that would be a great plot to explore.
I mean, he is capable of displaying emotions, like, albeit non-verbally. Before we end, I would like to mention that the fact that the actor goes through 3 movies, well, 4, counting the spin-off, All Hallows Eve, he has gone through these movies without uttering a single word. Like most slasher movie villains, like if they're like the corny type movies, they like have these really cheesy one-liners before they kill someone. This guy doesn't say a word. All you see is his creepy smile, like, or like him like going, as like he watches a person suffer. That's about as much as we get out of him.
Yeah, that reminds me of like the mime effect, like mimes from France.
Yeah, and Art the Clown is literally dressed in the color scheme of a mime.
Yeah, for facts. But I just covered what I wanted to cover. So,
all right. So that wraps up our episode for today. As always, if you have any topics for us to cover, please email us at jolioentertainment.com. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want to, and please share this podcast with your friends because we'd love our audience to grow so we can get to know all of you. Once again, I'm Big Fella.
I'm Credo.
And we'll see you next time.